I really love it when a new microbrand comes onto the scene with a really fresh and unique design, something that is slightly different to the norm, a little bit daring, and something that the microbrand will openly admit that you're either going to love it or hate it. So when Canadian microbrand Unison sent me their Model Orbital and told me that their philosophy is that we only have one life to live and that there is no time to play it safe, I was personally quite impressed. Today, we're getting up close and personal with the Model Orbital by Unison, so that you can make your own decision on whether or not you love it or hate it. And stick around as I take the Model Orbital around some of the great sights of London in my usual walk around at the end of my vid. As ever, it's great to have you here. But before we do anything else, here's the watch's spec in 90 seconds. This is the Model Orbital in iron blue and is the first watch from Canadian microbrand Unison and is due to be launched on Kickstarter in March 2023 and is one of 2 colourways to be launched alongside Neutron Gold. As mentioned in my 90-second spec, the Model Orbital is coming in at 13mm thick, it's 40mm in diameter, 45mm lug to lug, 20mm at the lug, with H-links leading down to the signed butterfly clasp. Without a doubt, the 3-dimensional dial is the star of the show and is extremely unique. You've got this kinda like a brushed steel central cog shape, or perhaps more like a 12-tooth sprocket with circular brushing, and with the hour markers sat within each tooth of that sprocket, and hour markers in a style that I can only describe as like angular rivet heads, and is surrounded by a blue chapter ring toothed to house those riveted hour markers. And that space and depth between the sprocket and the blue chapter ring is fully lumed with Swiss Superluminova BGW9 that gives off a really cool blue glow. One thing I will mention, however, is this blue. This is the iron blue, and I kind of wanted it to, pop out a bit more, especially the blue chapter ring, but appreciate that this futuristic, steely retro vibe to the watch lent itself better to perhaps the steel blue that they've used. Saying that, I do think that to the naked eye, the blue is a little bit more dynamic than on the other side of the camera lens. The Unison logo sits deep and cut into that sprocket in yellow with no brand name, in fact no text at all on the dial, so there is nothing to take away your attention away from that really unique dial. The hour and minute hands are these really cool blue syringe hands skeletoned with white tips that are loomed with BGW9, and the lollipop second hands with the signature in yellow at the lollipop. One bit of detail I think is worth pointing out is that the tip of the hour hand hugs the perimeter of that sprocket design, and the tip of the minute hand is perfectly equidistant over each hour marker, and that lollipop section of the second hands eclipses the hour marker too, with the tip extending over that blue chapter ring and into the minute markers. and surrounding that blue chapter ring is this riot with those minute markers, and that distorts nicely in certain angles due to the domed sapphire crystal. Overall, the dial is something else, a real eye-catcher in my opinion, which gives off a kind of industrial but also futuristic retro vibes. I can imagine this watch being worn by William Shatner in Star Trek, or even endorsed by Spock himself. And that futuristic retro vibe on the dial is extended out to the case. It's constructed with surgical grade 316L stainless steel with slim and curved profile sides, 10.8mm thick excluding the crystal and 13mm including the crystal. And that dial and crystal is surrounded by a smooth, high shine polished bezel. The top part of the case is brushed, but this chamfered edge is polished and curves nicely from lug to lug. The screw down crown is signatured and actually 30% smaller on this prototype than what will be produced in the final production runs. The screw down case back is mirror polished with an etched pattern matching the design of the dial. The Model Orbital is also water resistant up to 100 meters. Now this bracelet has H-links polished in the middle with the H being brushed, and comes with both 5mm half link and 7mm half links, which Unison say will guarantee a perfect fit, and that is held together by this butterfly clasp. Now in my own experience with butterfly clasps, I do find adjustments to be quite inflexible, so the introduction of 5mm and 7.5mm half links will help somewhat to get a more comfortable feel around the wrist. Now on my 7.5 inch wrists, it sits rather nicely for a 14mm case size watch, and I don't think that it looks too small, mainly because that generous 45mm lug to lug and the female end links lead nicely into that bracelet, coupled with a juicy dial and relatively thin bezel, giving this watch more of a 41mm or even a 42mm feel on the wrist. Size to my 7.5 inch wrist, this comes in at 148 grams, so it's good weight to it too. Now this is all powered by a Miyota 9039, 24 joules, 28,800 beats per hour with a 42-hour power reserve, hacking seconds, and as a member of the 9000 family of movements, the Miyota 9039 is part of Miyota's premium automatic line, and according to the good people at Caliber Corner, it offers accuracy of -10 to +30 seconds per day. Now the main man behind the Unison brand is Yu-Bai Chow, and is an industrial designer by trade and grew up as an art student, and when I chatted to him, rather humbly he said that he's pretty good at visualizing his thoughts, observing the beauty in design and creating new ideas that he believes would also bring refreshing designs to other people. And I'd have to agree. And when I discussed the designs with Yu-Bai, it was clear that he was just fascinated by what he calls the intricate little machine that can be put on the wrist that beats with such precision, and watches naturally grabbed Yu-Bai's attention. And when you put his product designing skill, love of watches, and some eagerness to create new things into one brain, the birth of Unison was an inevitability. Now Yu-Bai hopes that the Model Orbital will be launched on Kickstarter on the 20th of March 2023, with a launch price set at 550 Canadian dollars. Now that's approximately 405 US dollars or 335 UK pounds sterling, with a price going back up to 650 Canadian dollars. That's around about 480 US dollars or 400 pounds sterling when the Kickstarter launch ends. And just remember that the prices that I've quoted in US dollars and UK pounds sterling are as of the end of February 2023 exchange rates. Now overall, I'm a sucker for designs that I would classify as away from the norm, and to have a newly created microbrand that has had the courage to create a design that he openly admits will perhaps not be to everyone's taste, but sticking to that personal ethos of designing a watch that he envisages a watch should be, but also not to play it safe and to go all out with creativity with the aim of creating something very unique with both futuristic and retro vibes. Well, what can I say? It's a philosophy that I greatly admire, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Yu-Bai's Kickstarter launch gain the traction I think it deserves. Good morning, Model Orbital from Unison, soon to be launched on Kickstarter. See you later. Ooh, jackpot. and I am back.